Hey there, Caleb Wojcik here. Welcome to episode 100 of my podcast. Today I'm joined by my wife, Jen. Thanks for joining me today.
Anytime, apparently.
Anytime. As long as you have makeup warning and I have time to set up the cameras. Usually we don't film it, but we're filming this one, big episode 100. And it has me thinking about a lot of different things. You know, like when you turn an age that ends in a zero, like 20 or 30 or 50 or whatever, you're like, oh, this is like a big milestone. You might kind of like rethink things.
Yeah, you get reflective about, I don't know, things.
You like take a step back and you're like, oh, do I really want to be doing this with my life, or something smaller, or like, do I really want to eat cheese anymore? I don't know. I feel like those change my life.
Cheese.
And cheese, I'm not changing.
Okay.
But that's kind of how I've been feeling about this podcast. Maybe the content I make.
You've needed to film it for about a week and a half. And I keep asking like, oh, are we filming today? Because again, I need a makeup warning. So you've kind of been like, maybe, I don't know. No, actually, we're going to work on this today. So we've done that for about a week, which is not typically your style.
Part of that is having to set up the multi-camera stuff. Because I did want to film this because if you're following me on YouTube only, you might not even know I have a podcast. I have filmed a few of them recently, but that's where my biggest subscriber count is. Like the amount of subscribers I have on YouTube is bigger than my email list or how many people listen to the podcast or go to my website and stuff like that. So I just kind of wanted to put this everywhere. So if you are just someone that's been following me, or you're a super fan, if I even have any of those, of just like, what's Caleb up to, or what is he going to do next? I wanted to kind of talk through kind of some of the thoughts that I'm having with what I post online is basically what we're talking about.
Well, and I would say that the conversations that we've been having lately and maybe the things that you've been working through aren't unique to only you or to only us. So it's hopefully helpful to kind of share the situation that you find yourself in and make it like a non-scary thing that other people who are also finding themselves in can be like, oh, okay, it's, this is normal.
Right. And I mean, we're just over 6 months into kind of lockdown, for lack of a better term, of coronavirus here in the US. And that's upended a lot of people's lives. They have kids that can't go to school, and so they're working from home while taking care of their kids. They might have lost their job, or their job or career is changing differently in their
Right, it's taking on a new shape.
Right. And so I think that's also what's going on. Also this year for us, we're now parents, and so our daughter's almost 1, and that has definitely changed things of priorities or just how much time I have to work. Because before kids, I could work all day and
Right, which
really
you always had
consequences.
healthy boundaries around that. You were never, consistently working till 2 a.m. or
Yeah, I
anything
didn't
like
really
that.
like to
But
work nights and weekends.
you definitely, I think, have a pull now towards really wanting to be done by 5 or 6 p.m. and go upstairs and hang out with us for the evening versus like
or
when you were
take a longer lunch and eat lunch with you,
or go to the beach or
just take a break and go to the park or something like that. And I also have not been traveling as much this year as normal.
You're usually gone at least 2 or 3 times a month, maybe
about at least 1 to 4 times. It just kind of depends on the month. But traveling to video shoots, traveling to conferences to network with people, or doing things for SwitchPod a lot last year, and there's been no travel at all.
I'd say it's just kind of pushed you not to slow down, but to evaluate how you're going to spend your time. So between client work shifting and changing shape, between not traveling and not always being on the go of like packing for the next trip and then unpacking when you get home, and then, okay, what can I accomplish in the 4 days that I'm home before the next thing? And then obviously having, a daughter, you get a little bit more reflective. And then of course the pandemic that we're in, kind of like the combination of all of those things has led you to be a bit more reflective in the last couple of months, I would say.
Right. And I think from your perspective, seeing me even stop work an hour earlier
is shocking.
You'd be like, what's wrong?
What's wrong?
Do we need to go to therapy?
Or just, no, like you come upstairs, you have lunch with us, and like, we have our family time and our lunch together, and then you go back downstairs, and there have been some instances where you say, well, let's go to the park, or let's go to the beach, or I can help you do this. And on my end of things, it's like, no, I've got it. I'm doing this. Like, this is my side of things and responsibilities. Like, I don't need any help. Where you're always looking to help, but it's also coming from a place of like, no, I want to take an hour off and spend time with you guys a little bit more today, which is not what you have traditionally done, not because you haven't wanted to, but because you've been pushing yourself at a pace for a certain number of years where that really hasn't been an option, I think, for you.
Right, and I think part of that too is what I talked about a few episodes ago of getting out of debt, paying
Right.
off the last of any business, consumer, or student debt that we had. It is another thing where you're like working so hard to get to that finish line for so long, just like training for a race. And then afterwards, you're like, I don't want to run anymore. Or like
I need a break from running.
right. Like
Just
we've
give
all had
me a little bit of
anyone
time
that's
off.
run a race or trained for
Really
something
hard.
big
Yeah.
physically has had that feeling, I think, where they're like, oh, I did it. I need a break. And I know some people will take years off from, like they'll never cycle again or they'll never run again or what have you after something. I feel like that happened with me with sports in high school. Like I played tennis almost every day
Yeah.
in, certain seasons of high school. And once we lost the match in the tournament in states, like I've picked up the racket less than 10 times since then. I still have the same strings on it almost
Yeah, you
however
always
many
say
years.
like, oh, I should restring my
Like
racket.
16 years later, I haven't even put new strings on my racket. And I loved playing tennis for that period of my life. And I would love now, but it's like, if I'm never going to be at that level, playing at that level again, what's the point? Which is a very pessimistic way to look at it. But
Yeah.
those are the kind of thoughts that go through my head. And so relating that back to work and debt, that was my carrot at the end of the stick.
It was a very tangible goal for you. Like every
Right.
month you could see the progress toward the thing that you were working incredibly hard to accomplish.
Right. We were kind of parallel starting businesses, choosing to start new businesses, shut down businesses over the past however many years, 9 years now.
I don't know at this point, man.
And at the same time, also moving closer to where we wanted to live and the lifestyle we wanted to live, which had an increase in expenses as well. Those things, along with all the unknown things, you getting cancer and having multiple surgeries, us taking time to retire while we're growing up and take months off to go travel.
Yeah, we've made
all those things
things a
impacted
priority.
like the financial situation we were in and worked hard to get out of. But once you're through that, like, okay, now what? And so I tried to sit in that a little bit because I am the kind of person where I don't really celebrate stuff very well. Birthdays, accomplishments, things like that. The Kickstarter campaign for SwitchPod raising as much as it did, I didn't really feel like I fully celebrated that. Not that we're going to throw a big party or whatever, but I'm like, okay, what's next? Like,
You're the what's next guy.
What's next?
Yeah. Which is it's the rhythm that I'm used to from you. And we even talked about it. I think the day that we paid off debt, we celebrated with food, as we always do. But we talked about it being like, okay, this isn't the finish line. This is like, what's next? This is like, okay, we did it. What's the next thing that we're working toward? And then in the weeks following, I would say that there was kind of a shift from you, and you're incredibly in your head a lot of the time. So I was kind of getting the outer,
overflow.
Not overflow.
If like I've been thinking about something so much that it just like overflowed out of my head.
Kind of. Yeah, I would say that's usually what happens, and I kind of have to like piece together what's going on.
Like, what
and
do you
sometimes
really mean? Why are you saying
right? And
like,
sometimes I piece together the right thing, but a lot of times I don't. So there's kind of this rhythm with us of like, okay, we've communicated this isn't the finish line, like the next goal is, but in the meantime, you're kind of getting into the weeds of struggling with kind of recalibrating, I would say, your motivation for work and almost reframing work into a like, okay, I've paid off debt. I did the thing that I've been working so hard to do. And not necessarily what's the point, but like when I go downstairs now, what am I working toward and why am I working? So am I going downstairs because it's really fun? Like I think a lot of your work boxes check that. Am I going downstairs because people are counting on me? Yes, I think a lot of those work boxes check that. Am I going downstairs because this is new and I'm trying to figure it out and I really like puzzle solving? Like that's also you. So it's kind of, instead of having this huge, massive goal of, I have to get this number to 0 and get us in the positive, it's kind of finding for you these other either little or big goals to focus on to both motivate you to go downstairs, and not in the sense of like you don't enjoy going downstairs to work. I think you very much do. But it's like you've had this point on the horizon for so long and you got there, but you're still like you're still sailing. So it's
Yeah.
kind of just like, okay, what's the next island that I'm going to visit? And I think for you that takes a lot of recalibration and a lot of like you're saying, sitting in the, okay, what is next?
And I think where this even stemmed from was talking about this podcast. Like, so the core of the initial part of this conversation was, it's episode 100. I feel like I should do something special for it. I feel like it should be, maybe I land a really big guest, or maybe I do.
Thanks.
Well, clearly I landed a very big guest. But that's kind of where it stemmed from. And then it was like, okay, well, what do I want the podcast to be? What do I want to make content wise? This is only a small portion of my business overall. Like, that's something we
Right.
kind of touch on.
Yeah, I would say that one of the things you're struggling with is what to do with your, for lack of a better term, content. So like your YouTube channel and your podcast, because there are things that you very much enjoy doing. But I think there are things that as your business has developed, you've tried to work them into supplementing your business, or like supporting, I would say, your business. And I think you're looking for them right now to kind of be like a playground more so than a, very specific thing related to this, video thing that you
Like
do.
something that's extremely thought out, extremely planned, makes a lot of sense. And to kind of break down what my businesses are, I have a client side business that for the past 6 years now, almost, at the end of this month, it'll have been
Right?
6 years full
Yeah.
time running that. And that brings in
Like,
roughly 90%
yeah.
of the income until about this year. Then this year, since we launched
There's been a
SwitchPod last
shift.
year, now we're in a more profitable stage with that. I'm running that day to day as a big part of what I do each month, and taking draws from that as well as Waconer with Pat. And so that's shifted the percentages. But then at the kind of in third place then is this digital business that I call DIY Video Guy sometimes, because that's what I used to name it. It's just kind of my personal brand where I teach video. I have videos about gear and equipment and video editing and all that kind of stuff. And those just don't bring in the kind of money the other stuff does.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoy them, or I have
Mm-hmm.
for a long time. I'm interested in camera gear. I'm interested in editing. I'm interested in teaching people, and I've been helping other people make and launch courses for so long. I've always wanted my own courses because I can see the passive nature of those once they're made to bring in income. And so I've always just kind of been like, oh, let's run this business and get it as far as I can. Okay, oh, this other business, come along, you too. And then like, oh yeah, SwitchPod, like let's go. We're all going this direction.
When I was in weddings, we call it herding cats, because there's inevitably a moment during the day where you have to get 12 mildly drunk adults from point A to point B to take bridal
photos,
party photos. And we always called it the herding cats portion of the day. So I feel like sometimes with your businesses, like you're saying, you've set up all of these buckets and you spend time trying to fill all of these buckets, but it's also like somewhat herding cats of like, okay, SwitchPod, come on over here. And then, oh, okay, digital, like we need to do a little bit here. And then, oh, this client needs me in DC, so I'm going to be out and back in 3 days. And then I'll come back and then we need to do the SwitchPod photo shoot. And then, so it's just kind of, I think for however many years now, especially in the last 2 with SwitchPod becoming what it's become, it's increasingly difficult for you to herd all the cats.
Yeah, and I think it is probably like raising multiple kids at the same time, because
Who knows?
like
We only have one for the
they're
moment.
like older. So like my client business is 6 years old at this point. So, and I have someone helping me with that to do a lot of the video editing, and
Yeah.
he's getting more independent. And so it's like, okay, I can kind of take my eyes off this one for a few hours today, and I can look at this business and like care to this business a little bit.
Yeah.
And I feel like the digital business is the third child in this example, and
Which you're allowed to say that because you are the
I was the
third
third
child.
child, and I felt like nothing against my mother or father, they're amazing, but we've seen it with friends too, where like your first kid is the one you bubble wrap, the second kid is the one like you are like you still love a lot, but you like are a little bit like
More
hands
hands off,
off, and
yeah.
they like can become more independent, and then the third kid, you're like, they're fine.
They're sitting in a bush and
Yeah.
they are crying and their knees scraped, but they're good.
Yeah, and my mom always is like, well, I don't remember what you were like then, or something like that, and it's like because I was the third child, like the first one or two are like so ingrained in your memory. But anyway, I feel like the digital business is the third child where I like neglect for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And
Where it's doing fine. It's
it's
doing
doing fine.
great.
It'll bring in some affiliate income or some course sales or some
Yeah.
ad money from YouTube. And, it brings in 2 to 3,000 on average, in my opinion, whether or not I do anything. Obviously, I keep doing stuff on
Yeah.
it and it needs to be more passive, but just kind of keeps coming in money wise, which I'm very fortunate for. But in the grand scheme of things, that's not a large portion of my business. And so
So putting a lot of pressure on yourself
to make it that,
is maybe not fair
yeah,
to you.
because that's what I thought I needed to do. Like,
But
so when I left Fizzle in 2014, yeah, client work was the quickest way to money, but I thought that the best way to get the lifestyle that we wanted and to earn a lot of money and to be my own boss was to become a personality that focused in a niche, helping people with video production and things like that, do the camera gear reviews to get the traffic and bring people in, and then do the courses and
Well, and I think it's reinforced somewhat in that you're very much maybe the course guy in the space that you're in. So you're filming a lot of courses for people that are then making the kind of content and money that you envision yourself doing
yeah,
and it being a possibility. But going back to kind of the herding cats or the bucket analogy of like you've set up these things, you've set up the client business, you've set up SwitchPod, and you've got this digital thing. Instead of going downstairs every single day feeling like you have to fill all of those buckets, like you could just leave one of those buckets under the faucet to catch like, the drip.
yeah. But I felt like also this year, just looking back through all of the podcast episodes, the videos, the blog posts, all the stuff on my website that's about video,
Right.
I feel like if I would have set out 5 or 6 years ago and been like, "How can I make the website that is the best resource that's evergreen for people to learn video?"
Mm-hmm.
Most of the content I've made, at least in video format, was not that. It was
Very,
the attracting, like, what's new? What are people talking about? What's the new camera from
yeah.
Canon or Sony or what have you? And how can I bring more people into my audience?
Because that's a game people very much play and it works if that's the game that they want to play. And I think to a certain extent, you've put some pressure on yourself to try to play that game, but it's never fully felt like a great fit because you are a gearhead. You really like tech. You
Yeah.
really like nerding out about the new thing. But then there's this other piece of you where I wouldn't call us minimalists by any means, but I do think we're essentialists. Is that a
I
word?
mean, essentialism is
It is? Okay.
it's a parallel term that means
Hey, look at that.
different. Yeah.
But like, I think you and I operate from a point of view of like, we have enough things. We don't need more things just to have the new thing. So when you come downstairs and you want to make a video about the next piece of gear, it somewhat feels inauthentic to how you live upstairs, if that makes sense.
Right. And most of the things I'm talking about more recently are things that I don't own. They're things
Oh, for
that are
sure.
like they're new, so I get them on loan or rent them or whatever to try to test them.
Mm-hmm.
Or a company that I'm a fan of will send me something, and I don't typically do contracts in that format, so they send it to me, and then it becomes a guilt thing for me. And it's like, well, they sent me this free
So I
thing,
need to make
so I
this
need to make
video.
content about it. Um, and sometimes I'm excited by it, and sometimes I drag my feet and I don't put anything out ever for it. But it still is that guilt. It's like, well, they sent me that thing, and it's sitting in my drawer in my cabinet, and I feel bad.
So like for all of the things that you're doing,
Mhm.
like you just said, if I had kind of a, crystal ball and could have seen what maybe I should have done to help people make videos on their own, I would have done this. I would say that like you're building that now. We're kind of building that over here.
Yeah, that's
and
very behind the scenes of what
yes,
we've been building for the relaunch of my website and the different like learning pages and
right.
pillars we're going to have and the new courses we're
So
working
we're
on.
kind of
It's kind of all
recalibrating there.
hidden. Yeah.
Right. And then you've got this rhythm and this energy at SwitchPod.
hmm
And then you very much still enjoy the client work that you're doing. So you've somewhat done the recalibration. Do you think for you, it's just relieving yourself of the pressure when it comes to podcasting and YouTube to do like the trendy thing and just do kind of make it your playground and do what you want to do with those areas? Or what do you think the struggle is there?
I think the struggle is feeling like I have to make certain types of content to grow my audience and have them be the right people that then want to buy my courses or go through my affiliate links. And like, so making content that's going to make me money or
hmm
grow my audience, which is going to increase money.
Rather than just making content that you enjoy.
Right.
But this is where we come back to if that's the 10% or whatever the number is of your income, like why put so much pressure on it? Like you've got 90% of income that's coming from other sources and we're good there.
Because I feel like it's a
So,
missed opportunity.
right.
Because I feel like there are other
But
people that are,
what do I always say? Just because you
I
can
want
do
bread.
I want bread. Just because you can do all the things doesn't mean you have to do all the things.
Right.
I think that's one of the things, unfortunately, that you struggle with because you're incredibly smart, you're incredibly quick, you're incredibly capable. So it very much lends to you being able to always figure it out. And then you've got this guilt piece of like, well, I can do that, so I should do that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you necessarily need to. Like let's bring it back to me. A few years ago, I really wanted to shut down my wedding photography business. And we had a lot of conversations over probably a year and a half about whether or not that was a good idea. And I kept saying, I'm really, really, really good at this. I don't think that it's good for me. And that was something that we both had to make peace with because I could do it and I could do it really well. But in the long term, it wasn't fueling and feeding me the way that it needed to. And not necessarily that your content isn't fueling and feeding you, but if you could repurpose that space to fuel and feed you creatively, then that's only like lending to your energy in other places.
Even if it doesn't directly relate to the business side of things. So like me making content about another interest that I have that's unrelated in every way, shape, and form to video production, editing, camera gear and equipment, my courses, my affiliate, however my website is set up, making content about those types of things
Yeah.
that's completely unrelated to what I'm doing to me is like, well, no, I have all these other content ideas. I have all these other pieces of gear and equipment I could give my opinion on. And I feel like that's the thing that has stopped me from making a random video about why I don't think the electoral college should be a thing or why I don't like left-hand red turn signals and like just the most random things. I mean, like, or things that actually matter to me, more
Right.
topics bigger like stoicism or minimalism or like some of the bigger personal finance
Right.
stuff I'm working through right now.
Right.
You know, like those travel hacking, like all these different things that are part of me that aren't me on the
But
internet.
it's somewhat related to like people getting really hung up on having the perfect Instagram grid and they can't post that photo because it's not on brand or it's not related to what I do professionally. It's just a cute picture of my dog or my kid or something. It's like, who the hell cares? It's your Instagram
Certain
feed.
people do, yeah.
I know they do, but also like if you want to care about it, great, care about it. If you don't, just take the pressure off of yourself and
Yeah.
post the photo of your dog. Like, who cares?
Yeah, I think it comes down to being really excited about the gear and equipment as I acquired it to help me do my job,
For sure.
learning so much about
And
cameras and
you
lighting and
love
audio,
gear.
and I'm still interested in it. I still watch the occasional video when
Yeah.
other people put it out, but now I feel like there are way more people doing that too
Mm-hmm.
that weren't there 6-7 years ago when I started posting things on
Which
YouTube.
I wouldn't say that's your main motivation for not being interested in posting like gear reviews. It's not like, oh, so many people are doing it in such different ways or maybe better than I feel like I can. I don't think that's what's driving the pullback from you.
No, but I think some of the things that I made videos about were because there were no videos or poor videos, to my opinion, about that thing. Like
Yeah.
that DBX 286S that's sitting over there that I'm not even using right
What?
now. It's the thing we plug the mics into and it does
Oh,
like
okay.
compressor and stuff like that. When I got that thing, because that was what people told me to get to make your microphone better, there was not a good video on how to set it up. So I had to go through the internet, comb through, figure out how to set it up properly, and I made a video about it. And that video has, I think, over 100,000 views at this point.
Yeah.
So back then, 5-6 years ago, I feel like a lot of my motivation for the early videos I made was
But I don't
I
see
bought
someone
this
doing this.
thing
Yeah.
and there's no good video about it. I'm going to make a video about it. And I feel like where it is now
Like
in
you can find a good
2020
video about the
is
DBS 652
they're highly
100,000.
produced. Yes, that's what it's called. There are highly produced videos about products the day that the NDA drops, where people are allowed to talk about
Yeah.
it. And so I don't feel the need to do that as much. There's also so many things, so many different cameras, so many different camera brands. And really, like, I stick with Canon because that's what all my lenses and batteries are with. And I just want all my cameras to match. And yeah, I'm interested in the new Red Komodo or whatever Sony or Panasonic or whoever is coming out with, but it's not worth the time to me right now to put the time and energy into making those videos
Mm-hmm.
because it's such an indirect place to put my energy as well as an indirect way to bring people into my brand of teaching video or SwitchPod or getting more clients.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we deciding? Are we just like I don't make gear videos
I
anymore?
don't think we're deciding anything. I
Okay.
think we're sharing that this is kind of 2020 has been like a hell of a year, but it's also been a year where a lot of people have had the opportunity to slow down and evaluate. And on top of what's been going on, we've also accomplished this huge goal and started a family. So I think you're in a very reflective space and not in the way that I was with my career a few years ago, where I just wanted to GTFO. Like I was done. I knew that like I
Yeah,
had
you were
run my
a burnout
course. Yeah.
phase. You wanted to start a family. You didn't want to work
Right.
weekends.
I
You
think
wanted
I think
different.
you're in a space where you still really enjoy what you're doing in the various ways that you do it, but you're trying to realign motivation and you're trying to relieve like some pressure in some certain areas and recalibrate like where you're going to put your time and energy when you come downstairs. And I think a lot's driving that. And I think a lot has happened recently where you're enjoying the slower pace or the like reallotted time elsewhere. And you're trying to figure out how to maximize your time and effort when you come downstairs and also have some fun with it too. Which I think the pressure of like the financial pressure that we've been under for the last few years, you haven't given yourself time and space for that.
Yeah.
And you're starting to now. And I think you've kind of been thrown into the pool and you're figuring out like how to tread water a little bit in this new thing.
And I need to I don't think I need to just get rid of one of the
I don't think
businesses that
so
I'm working.
either.
I think to me what I ideally want is to take the rest of this year or into next year and really get the site revamped
Mm-hmm.
for makebettervideos.com or whatever it becomes and help people with the different areas of video creation that I feel like I can help them most with. And that means some free content. That means repurposing things we've already made. That
Right.
means creating a new course that's paid if necessary. And having that set up to be like, this is a house that I built and I can go to live somewhere else if I
Right.
wanted to.
Right. And it's the reason you wanted to have this conversation on this podcast was because it's not a unique situation to be in where you've been in a career for a certain amount of time. You still very much love and enjoy and are challenged by the career, but you're kind of trying to make some tweaks to the things that you do in order to like I don't know if it's just enjoy it more or be fueled by it more, or like you're not in the position where I was, where I wanted out,
Yeah.
because like there's not either or. Like you can be done with something, or you can be kind of just done with the pace of something or the feel of something, but still want to be in what you're doing. It's just you kind of have to like move some things around so that it looks and feels a little different.
Yeah, because I mean, I've made a couple gear reviews lately, and me making a video kind of has the same amount of input no matter what it's about,
Mm-hmm.
because I put a lot of research into it to make sure I'm saying everything correctly. I make sure that the videos are as tight and short as possible, so I'm not wasting people's time. And I want to make sure that what I'm talking about encompasses like what people need to know, but not stuff they don't need to know. And so it just like the research takes a long time, the scripting or outlining, the delivering it, the editing. I'm a perfectionist in a lot of ways about all of
You
that.
are your own worst enemy.
The setting up
You get in
everything.
your own way.
Right. And so all that for a $79, $89 microphone or a whatever light that a company that I'm friends with the people that work on the product are interested in. Um, that's what happens. But if I could put that into content that I also am excited about,
Right.
that's maybe unrelated to
Then you'd
a
be
piece of
really
gear
excited to
equipment
come
that,
down here and set up and to film and to like edit and
yeah,
to like kind of creatively play a little bit.
right. Versus feeling like I need to do a new podcast episode and it needs to be about this topic so that people can A, learn, B, you know, be brought into my audience and into potentially buying my courses, and like having
Right. Like
every
you're already setting
content
up the
piece is the
funnel in your
funnel.
head
Right.
before you film the video kind of thing, which
Right.
sometimes makes sense. But like for something that's bringing in 10% of your income
Or less.
or
Yeah.
less, just come downstairs and make the thing you want to make.
We live upstairs, so I don't know if that's clear to everybody. I don't know. You said come downstairs so many times that I feel like wanted to make sure people knew we lived upstairs.
Oh,
It
for
wasn't
sure.
like
Really helps when
you were
our
like locking
10-month
me in a
old is like,
basement and you were like, go make money.
I mean,
That's what
I
you
could
sound
do
like.
that if you want.
We need a basement, which you can't really find in California because of earthquakes. Do you feel like we covered everything you wanted to cover?
I think so. I think we've talked about kind of the reflective space you've been in and why the podcast might look different going forward, depending on what you want to do with it. And I think it's opened the conversation up to maybe somebody else that might be struggling with their own motivation for a career that they love, but that has maybe felt a little bit stale lately, and how to kind of reinvigorate,
Mm-hmm.
themselves within it.
Yeah, I feel like what I want is to be excited when I make a video or
Right. When
record a
you film.
podcast and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I feel like when I'm not,
You drag your feet more.
I'm dragging my feet to even start the process.
Yeah.
And then after I'm done with it, I don't, it doesn't feel great. And I also like it might not get the views anyway. Like if I'm late, like people want to find out about stuff right when it happens too. And so if I'm late to the party or I'm not someone that gets a camera early, like does the internet really need another person talking about a piece of
If you can't tell, folks, he's an overthinker. Just come downstairs and play.
video games?
Sure.
I want to be a Twitch streamer.
I don't
No,
really
I don't.
know what that means. I think I know what it means because we have friends who do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just
But
kidding. I'm late on that. If Twitch was a thing in like
2005,
2000 to 2008, yeah, I would have been
hopped
all
on
over
that.
that. Yeah.
I think the moral of the story is everybody struggles within the things that they're doing, and it's okay. And it's okay to take time to pause. It's okay to take time to reflect. It's okay to pivot within or outside of what you're doing, and to just kind of stop overthinking.
I don't know if I'll be able to do that as an
I
Enneagram
know.
5, but I will do my best, and I think we could close it out here. So if you have been juggling multiple different projects, if you've been trying to think of like, okay, I kind of enjoy this thing, but it's not really giving me either the happiness or the financial reward that this other stuff could or does, like I guess I would just challenge people to do what I'm trying to do, which is like sit in it for a minute and ask those questions and then make a decision and go forward. Because I don't feel like in the short term I'm going to change too much
Right, you're not
right
looking
now.
to flip the table.
No, I'm not just gonna like delete my website and like
Yeah.
never go on the internet again, or I don't know. That seems extreme to me, but I am going to try to take and finish what we've started this year with my digital brand and build out the offerings and build out the ways we can help people
Mhm.
with video that's more evergreen, less related to the newest piece of gear that came out, and see how that does.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll just start to organically grow. Maybe I need to just find ways to put myself in front of other audiences in different ways versus trying to play the what's the latest camera, what's the latest piece of equipment that's going to get search traffic views and play that kind of game. And just when I have time, not running other businesses, play a little bit more with this podcast or videos I make or writing. Like I don't just ever write and post something anymore.
No.
So just keep working on the third child business and make sure it grows up to be
Leb.
me. Anything else you want to add to close out, or you think that our daughter is awake from her nap and we should?
Yeah, I think she's
attend to-
awake and I should go get her.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for listening or watching if you watched this episode. Anything we mentioned in the show notes that we would add? I don't think there's any show notes for this one. I think you can always go to makebettervideos.com and see, if you're listening to this in the future, what we did with that website to help people learn video. But for now, I'm going to stop overthinking this outro and finish. Cheers.